Hi guys, welcome to episode 16 of Tiger Heart Chats. We have been getting so much positive feedback from the last podcast that we did. So many people are really interested in the positive awareness and mental awareness and mindset awareness stuff that we're focusing on at the moment. I've got a fantastic guest for you today. She is the brand guru. She's an industry disruptor. She's worked with some of the coolest people in the world, including Eva Longoria and also the fantastic Lily Allen. Please welcome to the stage, Seel.
Oh, you're so amazing on your intro. I'm really blessed to be with you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sue. I haven't seen you in a couple of years, but the last time we had a meeting, it was a coffee, I think, on South Bank. Yeah. We basically just hit it off, and I got so much positive energy from you. I am so glad you're on the show.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you very much. I'm really excited.
Cool. So, Sue, there's going to be a few people on here who don't know who you are. Tell us about yourself. Where are you from and what do you do?
Okay. Well, I'll make this as brief in the summary as possible. I'm based in London. I'm actually a northerner. I come from the other side of Manchester originally, but I've been in London probably going on for 15 years. I started my journey in London in the PR sector, in public relations, and worked for an advertising and sort of PR small agency. They brought, my ex-boss brought David Beckham to the brand Police. Wow. So I worked for him for 2 years and then I bought his business out and I set up the Brand Guru, which was in the direction of ensuring that it wasn't just about how you present your marketing campaigns. It was about you understanding who you are as a brand. I'm a massive believer in any business, whether it's a fashion organization or whether it's a football organization, that you are a brand, right? So, and with being a brand, it's important you recognize the emotional and human connection you have with your audience. So I've carved out a path, first of all, as the Brand Guru, as an agency itself. And then after social media sort of hit the ground and exploded, the changes in the sort of marketing sector and the communication sector, I then have become a consultant to small and global organizations, as well as now I spend 45% of my time teaching across 4 universities on the same subject as I do in my private business.
Amazing. Just with regards to the Brand Guru, how long has that business been running and where is it as a business at the moment?
You're going to show my age now. This is, I think it was 2008, potentially 2008, 2007, 2008, I set it up. It's not now an entity as a limited company was, because when you're an agency and you had staff, we were driving forward brands like Givenchy and Chopin on the accessory side, Police, wow, doing Cannes Film Festival, lots of celebrity work, because at that stage it was a lot of celebrity-based associations with fashion and luxury. But since social media, I've become a one-stop consultant, primarily because I was carving out this teaching sector. I was asked to do an industry guest talk at London College of Fashion, and then they asked me to go back and then teach. So at that time, I had to make a decision where I was going. So and it became a lot of, in that time that we started to see the Instagrams and Facebooks, businesses were attempting to do a lot of things in-house. And when we were, as an external agency, you were able to consult and help brands without them having this contact with the potential contact with the journalists or indeed the target audience themselves, right? Because brands like Police would benefit from an external agency because they would be able to ensure that they would get in the door of Vogue magazine or GQ magazine. They wouldn't have the contact base that you can get today. I mean, you can follow any editor of GQ in any country of the world now and try and make your own connections. So what then became obvious to me is that it was about how the etiquette of that communication was more important than actually the intros.
Wow.
Because we're in a society, particularly with the influencer contacts that need to be developed for brands in fashion and beauty. A lot of people aren't particularly educated, and that doesn't mean that they're stupid. It means they're not educated in the etiquette of communications with these people, and following someone or reaching out to them on a direct message and saying, hey, I want to send you free stuff and can you be our influencer, actually doesn't work.
Right.
And in some ways, the failure, because you're in number games then, flying out all kinds of randomness, actually is not, it's counterproductive, it's too time consuming. And often small brands particularly, we all know that it's first impressions last, end up failing very quickly because they haven't developed strategies and etiquette on their own brand communication. So right. I saw that as a kind of need for the industry. And so that's what I do. So I work a lot now with training, internal training staff. I've done some work with Harrods in the personal shopping, because our ambassadors are now everyone that works for a brand as well because of social media. So yep. The person that's working in retail that goes out and gets heavily drunk at a weekend can affect the backstory of the brand, right?
Wow.
And that doesn't mean that brands have to be, you can't do this and your personal life has to be this. It actually means that by creating a community, an internal community, and don't forget, people are a sustainability element. I mean, we all talk about climate and animals, but sustainability includes people. Yeah. So that kind of community development and the kind of communications development of how your, not just marketing department, but your staff, your employees are aware and they're confident about who they work for and they love who they work for, can make a huge difference to that sort of ripple effect within other elements, like, for example, influencers, journalists, interest in, if you're a small business, interest in the likes of Selfridges taking you on as a brand that they stock, so it's super important. So I've carved out that kind of structure, and it leads quite well with what I do with the teaching. Yeah. Because my thought on teaching is that we're supposed to be inspiring and we're supposed to be real-time mentors. I always position my dynamic with a student as actually they inspire me as well as I inspire them. Yeah. And so I work really hard on that, and that is exactly what I'm trying to present when I'm training in brand structures as well. That it's not a hierarchy per se. And I was listening, actually, funnily enough, I was listening to a TED Talk, because TED Talks daily, really like 14-minute sound bites, 22-minute sound bites every day. And there was an interview, it's not so long ago, maybe it's 3 days or 4 days ago, that they had the guy from Netflix. And the guy that has created Netflix, his philosophy on his employees, they can take as many holidays as they want. They can wear whatever they want to work. Wow. He was talking about, I've gone off piece talk about Netflix, but it's quite important, I think, in this time.
Please do go off piece. It's fine.
You know me enough to know when I go. That's it. He has a brand Bible. And I had access to it, but I don't know whether I have it anymore. But he basically runs his employment structure as if somebody wants to leave Netflix, the management will decide how much they are prepared to pay that person if they want them to stay. So is their capability, is their productivity, is their asset value so important to them that they will then pay them more? Or if they say, well, maybe they're better fit with somewhere else, they will pay 6 months a kind of payment to let them go.
That's amazing.
I still can't get my head around that. But I'm not saying everyone needs to start flashing cash, but I do think that if we were able to value on a different level, things would be different in the communications around us in that sector. So,
absolutely. You hit the right word there, value. That's like the most important aspect of any perceived, I don't want to say commodity, but just anything that you look at that you want to work with or use or connect with or communicate with. Yeah. The perception of value is the currency, and that's what people should really focus on as opposed to the rewards.
Yeah, think that I talk about this, and sometimes people sort of look at me very strangely, or rather, they don't look at me because you don't meet anyone now because of this COVID fatigue. But I am a believer that there is going to be some great stuff coming out of this difficult time, and one of them is the emotional intelligence and the emotional value that's important in this time. And when you're making connections, and when you're discussing sort of future thinking and making contractual terms, that intelligence and the emotional nature and the working practice will now become at the forefront, as well as the productivity or how the results are, or how much am I getting paid. Everyone needs to gain, everyone has to work to live. But I think for the innovators, I think it will be about how we develop long-term relationships with people, or relationships with people that we add value to as well as they add value, even though it might be me contracting you to do a website. Actually, there's a much bigger emotional value that you need to sort of create or agree with. I'm not saying it in contractual terms, but I think that definitely needs to be that, because we're all very deep thinkers now. We're all very affected by how we are valuing, even in the kindness regime, the kindness, whether you're picking something up for an old person that, the pensioner that lives by you, or whether you're actually reaching out. I mean, I've decided to do this mentoring and offer mentoring to previous students free, because I'm worried about the generation of the 18 to 24, which are now kind of almost being blamed for the spread. So, and some of those students are, because I don't want to go too much into the COVID scenario, but the most of those students are now finding difficulty finding jobs. And I was with one inspiring student actually beginning of last week, and she, having done an MA, having done a degree, is now feeling a sense of worthlessness. Right, okay. Let's think about what you want to do. Let's think about the kind of, I talk about this in gold, silver, bronze targets for your career and your life. Which brands would you want to be working for? And then actually really researching how they are developing and what maybe they need, or looking at your own sort of research around the industry, rather than this kind of, again, I come back to that scattergun approach to communication. Because the likes of luxury brands are not innovating. They're just not. Retail is having to change, and it's not as simple as just going online. So you move your staff, or you change your skill set of the staff. It's actually about seeing where the brand is and how the relationship is with their audience. And if that target audience is a millennial, then you need millennials in your structure. I mean, Gucci has 2 boards of directors. They have a board of directors with Alexandro Michele, but then he has another board, which is the youth board, that he runs everything by. So they are in that age group. So the stories of the 16, 18 to 24-year-olds are not valued actually is incorrect. They actually have something that could be potentially what is needed for these brands that are suffering. And fashion is I was reading a report, because I'm a proper nerd, I read a lot, and I was reading a report, it wasn't Euromonitor, it was one of the other big guys, maybe it was McKinsey, that the sectors that have really come out of their shell and been innovative, the food industry. Now you can get cocktails in London delivered to you. You can have Michelin star, and yet the fashion has sort of just existed. And then when we came out of the lockdown, I'm talking about in the UK now, these brands were just so desperate to get sales, they forgot who they are. And how disrespectful that is. And I'll go that far to say disrespectful, because your audience, that's a love affair. I teach branding, and I say, if you haven't got the heart and mind of your consumer, you're never going to have a brand. You're just going to have an organization.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That's so interesting, because particularly within the social media realm, the generic perspective has shifted so much, and it's been magnified during COVID, in the sense that people can see when something has value to them or not very quickly on social media. Like when I first started using Instagram, which was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, no one was using Instagram, but everyone's using it now. And everyone thinks I have to do things a certain way to get more followers, more likes. And the reality is, if you have no value, you know, to the people you're trying to connect with, you're not going to get anything. And a prime example of that is David Attenborough, who launched his Instagram, I think it was like last week. And he got 7 figures worth of followers in the space of 44 minutes, which broke Jennifer Aniston's record, which highlight the fact that it doesn't matter how many followers you have. What matters is what your story is, what your narrative has. And if you've got a strong narrative, people will follow you.
Yeah, of course. And also those people that follow you, well, I actually don't like that word followers. People who join your kind of Instagram community, or I like that word as well, my Instagram family. I will like and go on to pay as many as I can. And I will always try and reply on my Insta stories when somebody's been kind. I will always try and offer, a little reply that might be helpful or not helpful. And it takes a lot of time. But by doing that, the growth of your family is much more, it has much more gravitas. And, if you're positioning an Instagram, and this comes back to a brand again, if you're positioning an Instagram because you have to do it, and you know that there's a Shopify, you can do your MailChimp thing, you can do, I can do some sort of deal with Instagram so that I can position all my products, then it's just a website. Instagram is not the same. It's supposed to be part of the idea for your brand values. I think that it's really super important that when you are and I use that word communication a lot, that you are looking at Instagram and what it achieves in terms of building family profiling for your brand, and not just about, oh, I need some more followers, or I need to get more likes because then it might be important for a Vogue editor, or I need to generate sales, so I'm just going to stick styling tips on there. That's not what it's there for. It
ties in back to the word communication in the sense that you're nurturing a community, you're informing a community.
Yes, exactly. And one of my pet hates, and I have a few, is brands that decide they're going to be involved in this activism because they want to be included in the hashtags. So by searching on the hashtags, I'm just using this as an example, Black Lives Matter, your brand can come up. I mean, it's completely inappropriate. And there are brands that have talked a lot about diversity in the past. And there are 2 brands, one being Reformation, that's had to apologize publicly because they've tried to create a diversity approach, and they've used it for for their marketing. And then someone's dug a little deeper, and it turns out they actually are not diverse. And so it can really backlash.
Absolutely.
You don't jump on a bandwagon just because you think it's important. And also brands have to be in some ways quite neutral to, because your community, I mean, we all forget that the moment you post something on Instagram, you can have someone in Japan see that, or someone in the South Africa, or so your direction as a British person has to be mindful of cultural appropriation or inappropriation, and how you shouldn't be, sticking your opinions out there and actually you could be really offending someone on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
We all have a responsibility for that, but I think we forget. We forget it. And I do actually hope that we are going to start thinking about ourselves as humanity. Again, there was another TED Talks, and I can go from I think she was a psychologist or psychologist in Lithuania, and she was talking about it's very easy for us to read self-help books and say, oh, I need to develop, but we need to develop. So by we say community, which means, although we're not just talking about the person in the street or your neighbor, we're talking about the people that you interact with, communicate with. And those, ironically, are consumers. And people forget that too.
there's a big difference between taking an image of yourself and focusing on you than actually just opening your ears and listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Because by default, these small, the drinks industry, the small breweries, and people that were dependent on actually presenting their product in bars and restaurants, have innovated because they listened to, okay, in COVID, you'd be at home with the family, and they were creating boxes with, like, I can't remember the company now, but that Brewdog or something, and they were creating like board games that you buy your kind of beers or your lagers, and then they put it in the board game. Now, clearly that has its, it creates sales that therefore create money. But what it did was it listened to the community. And it listened to the fact that we're not just selling you a product, we're going to actually create an entertainment, something that's going to bring you together and actually make you happy. I'm not just talking about drinking either. I'm just talking about game playing as well, right? So yeah, I think we are, and there's not enough listening gone on during these kind of times of lockdown because people are fearful, right?
Yeah.
But the brands that are creating and innovating are those that actually believe in communities. They believe in a community. They don't believe in I'm selling to you. They believe in we're enjoying our like-minded interests, or in whatever else. I mean, Lululemon. Before, I'm talking before all this pandemic happened. Lululemon were one of the first brands. This athleisure yoga brand were the first brands to start presenting offline experiences, free yoga classes, because yoga isn't inexpensive to go to a yoga class.
Yep.
They were doing free yoga classes around the city and around cities across the world, free. So they were investing in a yoga instructor. Clearly, the yoga instructor had Lululemon on. Okay, that's fine. And they were giving the bottles, bottles of water or mats, because then there was a possibility that those consumers, your community, would share because they were so happy you've done something for them. And we haven't seen much of that, because everyone's worried about the finances. But actually, this is not that time. This is the time to create the loyalty before it goes, or reinforce the loyalty.
Absolutely. The four most powerful words I would state to any brand or business that's looking to communicate with their community is listen to your community. And they've come from Seel on this podcast.
I have to, because also on that note, I was reading about luxury brands, because luxury brands have always had this tier structure on their consumers. And when WhatsApp came along, they were able to create micro communities of people that they could then say, would you like this product in blue or black or etc. Right? But imagine you had that facility with your entire audience. So there's not really the level of, because that's about selling anyway, more than it is communicating. But I'm yet to see the development on the social media front where you can actually have almost your own groupings of types of people that you're creating and understanding within your community that actually you could benefit from a marketing perspective. That was mooted actually with Instagram, that there was going to be some group system that you could create, but everyone was so interested in it being a sales tool, they went through the shop, they went down the shopping route, whereas I was really excited about the prospect that you could actually have mini communities, micro communities within that Instagram that you could actually do research with, do that kind of dialogue.
We've touched on the things that you're working on, the things that you're passionate about. Okay. What are you currently working on at the moment under the new Seel brand? I've got the brand Guru still will exist. The brand that I referenced on my Instagram bio is Susan J. Seel, which is still me, still the same person. But that's being created because of my writing. I have two book ideas. One is a bit more advanced than the other. One is in fiction, one is in non-fiction. And one is a more academic based book. I'm just trying to determine, because I have a lot of conversations initially with Bloomsbury,
about the idea that when you have a textbook or an academic book that comes out, it comes out 3 years after you've written it. Well, it's not very useful now, is it? You know, most of what I would say of the course content now for, I'm not gonna be too politically incorrect here, but there's lots of things that you won't be able to teach now because it doesn't work like that anymore. So I'm just trying to develop a new way of thinking on that academic side, and whether we need some sort of accessibility for other materials that are current, and whether that time, the time between writing and publishing needs to change. From the non-fiction side, well, I'm going to actually pronounce his name completely incorrectly. Paulo Coelho. He's Brazilian, and I can't. Every time I get it, I think I overthink saying that surname. But he's one of my favorite authors. He's very inspiring, quite spiritual, and he writes books that are fiction, but they take you on a self-reflection journey without telling you your mental health is this, you need to meditate, you need to do this. So I've had this idea for a little while, but it again goes back to this 16 to 24-year-old bracket, that I have a 3-book series, 3 different protagonists, but in line with how the generations have changed, and really trying to be inspiring, but in a different way, without someone picking up a book and going, are you feeling depressed? You should be doing this. Because even the likes of Instagram have gone so deep on this, that you now have kind of graphics and tell if you're an anxiety person. I've got no problem with that, but it's not helpful to my positivity. Because if I start looking at what gaslighting is, or a narcissist, or a whatever, I've suddenly decided that I know someone like that, or I am that, whereas actually I should be growing myself. And it's funny, because I was only looking at these last night. My dad bought me, he's passed away now, but my dad bought me a 5-year diary when I was 12. And he said to me, you look back when you're old, and you'll be able to reflect on who you are as a person. And I have written diaries since being 12. There's probably about 15 years that are emotionally connected. They talk about boyfriends, they talk about how I feel, how my mum made me feel when she was making me clean the house. I read one out to my mum today. She was mortified. And then I've had diaries following that, because obviously you keep diaries for your own, appointments and scheduling, and around that you see your holidays and your memories, right? Yeah. So because this student I was with, Raluca, last Monday, and she won't mind me mentioning because she was very inspiring, was talking about this generation and how they're overthinkers, and they're overthinkers partly because we're driven by anxiety and depression, these words, mental health and stuff, all of which are important, but you are seeing them on your feed all the time. So I want to get back to this motion of a spiritual connection. And so I've got this 3-part series, but I'm just in the middle of trying to find an agent or interview agents, because I've never done this kind of work before. Okay. And so hence, this was the longest answer to the shortest question, hence why Susan J. Seel exists. Although I would say, and it's quite entertaining, I decided to go for .co. And I can't tell you how many people actually have to question that. Am I missing off .uk? Or am I missing off M? I thought I was being really clever, but clearly I wasn't. Clearly I should have picked something else. So that's what that's for. It's kind of to develop that.
I mean, you are a brand, and I think it's worthwhile focusing on that. I only kind of highlight that now because I had a lot of issues with truly understanding the kind of value of what I am as a brand. I've been a musician in bands, I've been on television, I've been in film, worked for tech companies that have done really well and they've been exciting. And I've always had that imposter syndrome where you feel the focus shouldn't be on your name, but should be on the teams that you work with. But only now have I truly understood the value of who I am and why I should put that on a sign and say, look, this is Sanj and this is what Sanj is about. And I feel you have that. You're a force of nature in yourself.
Kind of you to say so. One of the first things I do when I teach, because I teach online courses for various institutions, but one of my London College of Fashion courses for public relations, marketing and public relations, is the first week's assignment I get them to do is I get every student to create a mood board of who they are. And that's probably the hardest thing that most students find. They'll come back to the table, there'll be different collages of, words, or they'll take their Instagram. But you can then see how many actually understand as individuals who they are. Because it's not about, I like to travel. Yeah, I love to travel. I love boxing. Anyone that watches my Instagram is full of I love boxing.
Cool.
But those are not who I am. And I think I've always known the kind of person I want to be, because especially once my father passed, and my father was my everything. My mum is still my everything. She'd be annoyed that I said that because she's still poor. But my dad was a force of nature. He was the force of nature, and the strength and the fortitude and the ability to offer yourself out there and be straightforward actually is a value in itself. And being able to recognize that sometimes we think as we're getting older that we know more. And what is the greatest thing, and I feel like I've got Peter Pan syndrome actually, is that the people that inspire me the most are those people that are younger, and I teach. And by them kind of being able to reflect on who I am, I've been able to grow even more on the values of who I am. Yep. That level of always wanting to give more, always wanting to give real-time reports, never feeling scared of actually saying what I think, and never feeling like I shouldn't fight for something I don't agree with. And that sometimes that's not probably a good thing, but I've always stood by that. And I think the more you recognize who you are as a person, the more you are able to develop really meaningful conversations. So yeah, my stubbornness is definitely not a value, but so there's not always all good. It's not always all good. But yeah, but thank you for that. That's very kind.
You kind of touched on how you feel your stubbornness isn't a value, but it is what defines the uniqueness, or is part of what defines you as a person. And I think that type of uniqueness has to exist within everyone for us to actually have part of this conversation.
You have to understand your demons. If they are demons, it depends on the degree of extremity of what people might say is negative. And I actually was on Pinterest, because I find Pinterest quite entertaining sometimes. And you go down this rabbit hole of Pinterest, the use of language and how we sometimes can say, she's dominating, but dominating means this. And I think that started with the Me Too movement, but going more into that, what does this word actually mean, and what is the positive and negative of that word, actually allows you to grow, because everybody has characteristics that are, in whatever spectrum it is, the massively, inspiring and positive and rainbow and unicorn. But we all have our own little traits that are that if we can come to terms with, and I don't mean change necessarily, I just mean look at it and say, right, well, I'm stubborn, but I'm also straightforward.
Yeah.
By being straightforward and knowing, and the reason I'm being stubborn is because I'm going to justify it with this, and you understand yourself what that word means and why you are, then I think you can grow. You can, without doubt, you can grow. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
No, but then that's what makes us perfect.
That's right. That is right. Oh, I felt the little unicorns come out then. It's like, no, but it's true. It's true. I do feel that we spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time trying to be growing, and not enough time thinking, I'm actually quite a good person. I'm actually quite. I've actually got a lot to give. I've actually got. I actually feel like I could be really passionate about this, and this comes back to what we were talking about with the society now and the difficulties we're having in the employment sector. Actually, if we then start to think about, I actually think I would be really good in this sector, and starting to write down in a more positive way our capabilities and our passion and maybe our favorite brands and who we'd like to work for. And then I think you'd start carving out a different choice of your own making.
Yeah.
Because the news is the news. We can't do anything about that. And the pandemic is the pandemic, and conspiracy theories are whatever. But I think if we look at this as an ability to kind of reset and be really grateful of who we are as people, I've had, after my dad passed, I was really struggling because, that I'd never lost anyone before in my life. And that was the biggest. And then it was at a time where obviously the social media was coming in. So the two are collided. I just split up with someone from 8 years. They'd all collided. And I had to dig deep. But digging deep meant recognizing, listen, I'm worthwhile here. This maybe we're going to change. And so nobody doesn't go through I call it darkness. But actually, coming out of the darkness and being able to value yourself coming out of that darkness is also positive.
Yeah.
Looking back and reflecting as, wow, it's that time. And so the growth of yourself is actually getting in that space that's actually quite uncomfortable. When someone says they have to look at themselves and say, well, I'm stubborn, I'm a bit, aggressive, or my emails are not, that's quite a difficult position to be in. At that moment, but what comes of it is some great hopefully some great positivity and acceptance. I've got there's a friend of mine actually who he's in the nightclub industry. He actually was on Sky News the other day, and I was like, what's Luca doing on Sky News? But he's opened a meditation. It's called House of Wisdom, and this is not pimping out like a free promo, but I went to a session there because I was supporting. I went to a session there about looking at the power of setting. I can't remember the title. Power of setting goals. And one of the greatest things that came out of that session was him saying there was a point he recognized the kind of person he was, and he didn't want to be that person anymore. But he recognized it was in him, but he just needed to adapt the way he was doing it. And from that moment on, relations with people would be different. And that was quite powerful for me because he was accepting something in himself that he's not going to get rid of. So whether you're blunt and aggressive in your way you approach things, actually it's quite powerful. So I was quite inspired by that, really inspired. And I obviously inspired enough to tell you as well. And the audience, your lovely community.
Sue, tell us about Elle magazine.
Elle magazine, I was really blessed actually because Elle magazine, a guy who is kind of a disruptor in himself, really tech background. He had contacted me on LinkedIn that I think he was looking for a certain value of the people he wanted to build around him. Elle magazine already run campus style courses, a bit like Vogue do in London, Elle magazine do in Madrid. And he, at the very beginning, I think it was at Spain's worst point in time actually, when the first spike for Spain. And he had decided obviously that the online would be the way forward. And so they reached out to me and said, would you like to develop, we've got the programs in mind for this time. We're going to do them in, I don't know how many languages, maybe I'm going to punt it out at 6 or 7 different languages they're going to do it in. So they take obviously the native speakers and they can develop their own modules, their own content within the modules that Elle magazine have given me. And so that's that. So, and it's a different style of teaching for me because it's what they do is they have pre-recorded, like me for 55 minutes, like your community. This new family I've found is now having to listen to 55 minutes or not listen to if they don't want to. I should have actually said at the very beginning that people might need to turn their volume down for me. I always do not at all. I always do it in lessons. So you have pre-recorded lectures from professors, so from me, and then you have industry like the Tom Fords, Stella McCartney's that are then interviewed, and the sound bites or the video content is put into the course module framework.
Right.
There are quite a few businesses. Masterclass is another one that does it like this. And so I'm developing with that. And it was a labor of love, without any shadow of a doubt, because I'm a very interactive lecturer, and also you can't use any notes. So I can drift, which I've done in this interview. 5 minutes of a particular lecture is quite hard. It is quite hard, but I've got like boards up, and I put, so I'm not looking. It's a bit like acting or presenting, I suppose. I've got things up on the wall that remind me, right, this is the next bit you have to do. And it's the flat, actually, my flat in Hampstead almost looks like a studio now, with lights and cameras. And so, but I am enjoying it because I love stepping out of my comfort zone. And I am a massive, massive fan of this online platform, not just L, but in general. I teach at London College of Fashion and their courses I'm always in awe of. I've got a current one at the moment. I've got someone in Japan and someone in Brazil on the same course. And it's like I'm talking to the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and these girls are talking about their countries and what's happening. I don't focus on COVID, although I always want to know if everyone's safe. But how the communication is in terms of brands, what other, is it street style, or is it, are people really interested in celebrities in whatever nature? And so I absolutely love it. I absolutely love the online stuff. And also, if you are an introvert and you are trying to develop, but you're not sure you've got necessarily the confidence, then online is amazing, because you don't have to be front and center. You can actually be able to listen and to engage in a very kind of safe space. So I think it's really exciting.
What I really truly love about the online world and this renaissance that is happening, it's allowing people to really define how they express themselves using these platforms. When social media first started to become prominent, when the internet first started to become prominent, people were just scattergunning all sorts of things into the ether just to kind of see what would stick. But now I find there's lots of definitive directions that people are journeying down to really define what their perceived vision is through the digital platforms. And that's exciting.
I think it's really, really exciting, and I think we're going to get more now of. There's something I've just discovered. You may already know it, but there's a digital platform called Highbrow.
Oh yeah, I know Highbrow. I knew
you would know it. Well, I'm new to the table. I'm new to the table of Highbrow, and it's so good because I can have this sort of morning lesson sent to me daily. It's kind of mini lessons. And it kind of develops do I have an interest in this? I'm doing an economics one at the moment. Do I have an interest in this? And I can't remember how much my membership is, but it's not expensive. And, that in itself is a disruptor, because it allows a kind of taste tester, doesn't it? A little teaser. Yeah. And say, right, I really want to look into psychology, so then I'm going to look online for something else. And you don't necessarily have to have something that's about your career growth. It can also be about your own growth, right? Which I think is really super important in this moment, because there are things that are talking more about the happiness feel, or how to interact with your friends and family, rather than saying, how do you cope with anxiety? I'm all over that,
And it's really interesting you say this. Over COVID, I did a course online at Harvard on leaders of learning.
Yes, I saw that.
And for me, it was such a wonderful experience because it allowed me to truly think about the way I teach, and the standard hierarchical individual style of teaching, although it has its place, isn't the only place for someone to learn. And it could be that, someone will have these bite-sized lessons digitally using, a platform like Highbrow or Masterclass, or, they meet up with communities and learn together in a certain way. It feels like education particularly is going through a period where people feel empowered and feel like they can learn at the right pace that's right for them, as opposed to being told how to learn.
I agree. I agree completely and wholeheartedly. I think we are much more able as educators. I don't even like that word, educators, as mentors, to have more people involved and engaged as students, as co-inspirers, if that is a term, because you're going to get people that want to learn in a different way, that aren't afraid to learn now.
Yeah.
And similarly, there won't be that sort of hierarchy of people at the top of education institutions saying, this is how we teach. Because that isn't how we teach. We're teaching in different ways now. And then we talk about this blended learning kind of thing. But we still, although we have to have the rules within the sort of qualification on teaching, I do think that they need to be broken a little bit now, and we stop thinking about, this is the types of teaching you need to be. No, actually, who are the types of people and what do they need, and how can they learn? We didn't look at it like that before. We were kind of, no, you have to do this and this and this, and the student just had to make a decision. I want to pass this, so I'm going to have to get over it. Whereas now, as a student of whatever you want to learn, you can make a decision how you want to learn.
Yeah.
And that is very empowering for me. Very empowering. Very empowering.
You've had a really colourful working life within the industry that you work in, and you've worked with some really interesting people who I named at the beginning. There's a couple that kind of stand out for me, and I'd love to kind of just hear your thoughts. What was it like to work with Eva Longoria?
Well, the likes of celebrities, I'm mindful, because it's almost like saying, what's it like to work with Joe down the street? The personality is an opinion, and I don't tend to have opinions of people. I tend to be much more about how much I enjoyed working, or how the level of her. Because when you're working with celebrities, you often have a manager, you have an agent, you have a stylist, you have especially when you're meeting them, like Eva Longoria or Quentin Tarantino and Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, when they were together, all in that framework, that same year at Cannes Film Festival. Wow. And the one thing I would say about being blessed to meet these people, and for them to, Quentin Tarantino, I did, because I'm not a great fan of I'll come back to Eva in a second, because I've gone off piste again.
No problem.
Quentin Tarantino, it was the most incredible. I was over there doing gifting for police sunglasses, Givenchy and Chopard, and I'm very anti what is the norm in anything I do. So I don't like gifting suites, and I worked with the Carlton Hotel, the iconic hotel on the Croisette. And we I shipped, or had my client ship over all these glasses. And the director of the Carlton and I had communications about the types of celebrities that were arriving at the hotel. And I then picked out glasses. I picked out, gifts, of which they would always be like based on the style of the person. And they would be left in the room as a gift of the hotel. So Quentin Tarantino, it's always sunny in Cannes in May. It's very unlikely you're going to get rain, although there was one year, I did 3 years, one year that it did rain, only one. And he looked out of the window apparently, and thought, oh, it's sunny, I need some glasses. Looking around, picks up the pair that's just, in this kind of very discreet bag, left with obviously where you have the room service stuff. And he wore them on all his interviews. He was waving them on the interviews. They sold out globally within 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, goodness, this is really crazy. Eva Longoria, beautiful human, very, very very, very aware of what a celebrity is and who they are as a person, you know, the gifting of things. And she actually came up to me while I was having lunch on the terrace, and she found out that it was me giving the gifting, and she thanked me.
Oh. So
those kind of relationships are, but again, it's about the communication. It's about the respect. I mean, it's unfortunate, really, but I was due to go to GQ Heroes. You know, I was due to attend, and I was going to cover some content for GQ Heroes for my community. It's like a 3-day event at Soho Farmhouse, or it would have been. This is the second time it's going to be rescheduled. They have people from the football world, from the fashion world, you know, all do guest speaking, and there's dinners and things like that. And those kind of events are the tickets. Some of the tickets are sold, and I'll watch and observe, you know, people trying to go up to celebrities or trying to go up to their management and say, "Can I have this?" and "Can I have this?" And there are celebrities that are very much aware of why that person is coming up to them, and how that fan, that, you know, that person is important to them. And clearly you can't have everybody in every minute of, you know, celebrities have their own private space. But there are celebrities that I've worked with, and I'm not going to name some, that are particularly good at that, particularly good at the nurturing and the humanity side, you know, the human side of who they are. Because we talk a lot about celebrities being, you know, they are humans, they're their own person, they make mistakes. But actually, if conversely, celebrities that are very aware of humanity and how the fans have made them successful, those are the ones that are always touched. I always feel really blessed to have met, because they're the ones that really are truly gifted and their craftsmanship. Truly gifted.
Awesome. I guess just from those experiences, they've given you a perspective, not just on how you look at them, but also how they see the world.
Yes. I mean, this comes back to my dad again, though. I was born in West Africa, and my dad was in textiles. And my dad, I mean, there's a little backstory on that. My dad's cloth, batik cloth, which is from Africa, right? Particular wax print cloth, was on the film Coming to America at the beginning.
No way.
That's my dad. That's my dad's cloth. Yeah.
Oh my God.
My dad, but cut to chase on the celebrity bit. I wasn't going to do an Eddie Murphy story there, but my dad was absolutely obsessed with golfing. And he has played golf both in Africa and both in the UK as I was growing up with celebrities. And so, you know, you'd sometimes meet, and I'm talking about UK celebrities now, I'm not talking about global celebrities, comedians and people on TV, and, you know, and he always used to say to me, you treat, whether it's a celebrity or the person picking up the bins on a Tuesday morning, you treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
And that has always stuck with me. So it's not about the person, it's how you are with that person. And that's why I come full circle to what I was saying about the celebrities that I really do admire, because they know that just because they're a fan doesn't make them any less of a person.
We're coming up towards the end of this call. I kind of feel like we've just literally just touched on the questions that I sent you prior to this call. But no, it's brilliant. I guess it means we'll have to do a part 2, and that's totally fine.
I'll do it anytime with you, anytime.
Just a quick question. So what advice would you give anyone that's interested in getting into the industry that you currently work in?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, first of all, which part of the industry? Maybe you should ask. If you're talking about my fashion or my luxury world, I would be really thinking about not the skill sets, and this is a complete twist on what people would advise you to do if you went into YouTube, right? I think first, before you start thinking about who you are and what you offer, I would actually be thinking about what is that industry in right now. You know, we have access, even if you're not an educator, if you're not working in education, right, to reports on industry, to the diversity of whether online or social media, or, you know, what's the emerging stuff coming out in the industry. So when I say industry, if you want to work in men's accessories, I would absorb and research everything to do with men's accessories. Every type of global phenomenon or I'm not talking about styling now. I'm talking about the trends of consumers and the trends of, brands that are in there. The moment you start reading and researching, the moment you have passion.
Right.
And the moment you have passion, you can then see, wow, I'd love to do it, but I can do that. So you're almost investing in your belief system, because by doing your research, you're not just saying, okay, well, there is a job opportunity. Obviously, that's important. But you are able to go, wow, I'd love to do that. And I know I can do that.
Yeah.
When I'm mentoring, when I do the mentoring with students, I've never had one student say to me, I can't do that. Because what you want to be involved in, even in a subconscious way, your skill sets are already being developed. You might not know that, but if you know in the back of your mind, I really want to work for a luxury brand and I really want to work for a personal shopper, you've already started the journey anyway. It's just you need to research what is future thinking. I'm a massive future thinker. I don't work on the analysis of what's gone before. I work on what's coming. And the reason you work on what's coming is that you can then adapt to saying, right, there's an opportunity there, and carve that out. Because we're all very guilty of going, oh, this is really bad and retail is changing, or but what I want to know what's next.
Yeah.
And there are, although I'm not a crystal ball, I'm not going to come at Halloween with a crystal ball and you'll see me smoke in my Instagram coming up in a crystal ball. But what you are able to do, because we're intelligent, we all are intelligent, we all have access now because of this beautiful thing called the internet, that we can find out things that you piece together, So, and if you're getting into a career, if you want to get into a career, if you start at that level, you're already making your step forward. If you start at the level of, right, how do I do this? Do I have to go on a website? Do I have to make my CV? Then you're going to bore yourself. You will. Yep. I guarantee it. And that's when the scattergun approach to applications, I remember when I had Brand Guru and I had a shoebox, a tiny shoebox in Mayfair, to have the address when I first set up. So, it was a kind of like shoebox. I had IKEA furniture in there, and it was hilarious, really, looking back. And I was always of this mindset that, when I had CVs arrive on my desk, right? Because obviously everyone thought you were this really global powerhouse because you've got a Mayfair address, and you saw Brand Guru. So let me go and try and work for Sue. She's worked with celebrities. The ones that stood out weren't the CVs; they were the cover letter. Right. And the cover letter, because there were letters in those times, there weren't emails. No, there were emails. I'm not that old. It was on parchment. No, they were written on parchment. God, I really need to stop with that old joke. Because the covering letter showed me how much you'd researched. Because what you're saying in that is you won't talk about me and try to impress me. You'll talk about something relevant, industry, or to what sector I'm working in. I never gave an interview to someone off a CV. Because anybody can put a CV together and say, I like horse riding. Yeah. And I've done 3 A-levels. I'm not saying that's not important. I'm saying if you want to get into this type of career, you have to immerse yourself. You have to drown in the information. Yeah. So that when you're in an interview, when you're sending something, the first thing that someone opening is going to go, wow, I didn't even know that. Where's that research from? Because you can't possibly know everything. So you might just hit it, that little magical sweet spot where you've got that person reading it saying, I did not know that. I need this person. So yes, I hope that.
Brilliant. So Sue, we've come to the end of the chat. I'm sure there's going to be loads of people that got a lot of value out of this hour of power. If people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
You can either I think in the initial, if you're an Instagram aficionado, probably just DM me on my Susan J. Seel, and DM me, and then I can give you whether it's just a quick question or whether I need more time. Alternatively, if you prefer to to present me with the context of what you want to ask, because sometimes it's just a quick question, right? And sometimes it's about, I want to set this, can you advise me this? Then send it to the email, and it's Sue, SUE, at thebrandguru.eu, because I still believe in EU, and until they tell me to take it away, I'm not taking it away. So yeah, Sue at thebrandguru, so the little @ sign, and then thebrandguru.eu. But if it's a quick question, or you just want to ask me something just anything about what I've talked about, or just as I say, quick question, then just reach out to me and DM me on my Instagram.
Sue,
I have really enjoyed it very much.
Mate, this has been fun. It's always good to talk to you, and we'll definitely get you back on one of the future shows for sure. Those of you listening, I hope you enjoyed what you've just heard. Would love it if you could subscribe or share. If you've got any questions, please do get in contact. Wherever you are, I hope you're safe, and whatever you're doing, please be good.